Okay, you guys, let's talk about the connection between our gut and our brain. So, a lot of you guys have probably heard my personal story, but I'm gonna share it again because for me, this is the most powerful piece. It's why we lead with nutrition in week one. And I want you guys to understand the powerful connection between what's going on in your gut, the health of your gut, and the health of your brain. So, yes, this is about how we look on the outside, and we all know that we feel like that's important, and that's good, that's great. But this is also about how we feel on the inside physically, but it is also about how we feel mentally and emotionally. And that is the piece that so many of us miss. So, for me, what actually jump started my wellness journey, and it's the reason that I'm a health coach and I'm sitting here talking to you right now, is that after my boys were born, they were both preemies. And, I had tough deliveries with them. A lot of medicines were injected into my body. They brought in the crash cart for me when I had my first son. Like, it was all dramatic. They didn't have to use it. But coming out of that and then taking care of two babies who were preemies and had health issues from the get-go was extremely exhausting. And I worried about them a lot. I had tons of sleepless nights. And, by the time my youngest was 8 months old, I found myself living in a constant state of anxiety and panic. My body was basically stuck in fight or flight mode. And it had been slowly building to that point for about 3 years. I just was head down, grinding, trying to take care of these two kids and completely ignoring every signal that my body was giving me that it needed some love and attention and some things needed to change. So fast forward to a night out at dinner at a friend's house, and I have a massive panic attack in front of a lot of people. And I knew some of them and some of them I didn't, and it was embarrassing. And I'd been kind of living with this like panic and anxiety secretly for a long time. I had had many trips to the emergency room. I had carried around a prescription for anxiety medication, which the funny thing about anxiety is I was actually afraid of having a reaction to the medicine because I'd also been having all kinds of reactions to food. I had developed a bunch of food sensitivities. I was afraid to eat if I was alone because I didn't know how a food might make me react. So I carried around this prescription, but I was too afraid to actually take it. So I never even used it. In and out of doctors' offices, and nobody could ever find anything wrong with me, and I kept hearing things like, it's all in your head. I was losing a lot of weight. I was having a hard time actually keeping weight on my body. And I just all around felt like shit. So I have this panic attack, and I wake up the next day, and I'm literally like sitting there thinking to myself, I refuse to live like this. I'm not going on like this. Like, this can't be it. And I was like, I need some help. Like, something, show me something. How do I figure this out? How do I get better? How do I get rid of this anxiety? And, I'm sitting there and I'm flipping through a coupon book, like a Clipper magazine. And I see an ad for a chiropractor. And it says things that she treats. And the first thing on the list is anxiety. And I was like, I'm going to take that as a sign. And I call her up and I make an appointment. And I go in for my first appointment. She doesn't even touch me. She never adjusts my body. She listens to me. She talks to me. She asks me questions. We talk for an hour. And she says to me at the end of the hour, I'm going to teach you how to eat and it's going to change your life. And that was not an exaggeration. She taught me how to eat, and it changed my life. It's the reason I'm sitting here right now. It's the reason I am the healthiest, happiest, most empowered version of myself, because I learned how to fuel my body for health. The journey took a little time because it started with that nutrition piece, but it took me a while to figure out that I needed to go back and heal my gut as well. And in combination with that, when I started to work on my gut health and I also started to work on my mindset, those two powerful things coming together literally was a 180 in my life. And that is what this program, this 30 days, is based on. It's how I transformed my life physically, mentally, and therefore financially, because I became in 18 months the most empowered, happiest, healthiest version of myself. And so that's what I want you guys to understand, the power of the connection between the gut and the brain and how we feel and functioning at our optimal level. So let's talk about that. The gut and the brain are scientifically proven to be connected, you guys. They are in constant bidirectional communication through the vagus nerve. And our intestines are physically linked to our brain through that nerve, and it sends signals in both directions. If it's severed, the intestines can actually still function without a connection to the brain. So it could be said that they have a mind of their own. So you may have heard that the gut is frequently being referred to now as our second brain. So the lining of the gut actually contains an independent nervous system called the enteric nervous system, and that is the system that has given us that nickname, the second brain. So, also, so important, this is like huge, the bacteria in the gut that digest the food that we eat and create neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters give us those great feelings of happiness that we all want, right? Highs and lows of life are controlled by emotions and chemicals in our brains that control what we feel and think and do. And most of the neurotransmitters that actually tell us how to think and feel are produced in our gut. And that includes serotonin, which is the one that most people are familiar with. It's kind of nature's antidepressant. And 90% of it is produced in our intestines, not in our brain. So if we want to feel good here, we have to feel good here, okay? And studies in mice show that changes in the microbiome, our gut bacteria, changed the mice's behavior. So when things get out of whack, when things change, for better or for worse, it's going to affect our behavior, how we think and feel. So for me, the damage that was happening in my gut that then led to food sensitivities that I was unaware of, and then I was eating these foods that I was sensitive to, creating more inflammation, and just became this like cyclical cyclone perfect storm happening within my body. And then that triggered the anxiety, and it triggered the massive brain fog and the chronic fatigue and the crashes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And eventually for me, it went on for so long that I had massive inflammation in my body. I had pain in my joints. I broke out in rashes on my skin. I was even having to go have my blood work done like every 3 months because my inflammation markers were so high, and they were monitoring me to potentially put me on medication because they were worried that I was going to develop lupus. That's how bad it was. I was 30 years old, you guys, and I was falling freaking apart. And it was all due to what was happening in my gut. So let's talk a little bit more about the microbiome in our gut. That second brain area, it's just so important, you guys. 90% of the cells in our body are actually bacterial cells, and only 10% are human. So this ecosystem of like bacteria and mold and fungi and all that stuff, it's as diverse as the Amazon rainforest, okay? Thousands of species with different functions living right here in this digestive system. They digest our foods, they help produce vitamins and hormones, respond to medicine and infections, control blood sugar. All of these things are happening because of this microbiome of basically bacterial cells. And the types of bacteria in our intestines can significantly control our risk for a lot of different diseases. And they're involved in just about every body process. So it's super important to actually heal and restore our gut microbiome for total physical and mental health, okay? So one of the main factors of gut health is the gut microbiome that we're just talking about. And this bacterial colony that is living in our gut, it can be changed depending on the lifestyle that we live. So, like what activities are we participating in? Are we exercising? How many toxins are we coming into contact from our lifestyle, from where we live, from what we put on our body, from what we put in our mouth, from our drinking water? How are we detoxing? Like, are we sweating? All that kind of stuff. Also, what we eat, our exposure to antibiotics. All of these things impact the state of the gut microbiome. And it literally is going to dictate how we feel, how our immune system functions, and how we digest and assimilate our food. And that's what's nourishing our cells that are rebuilding our entire bodies over the course of every single year. So think about this. There are actually 10 times as many microbial cells in our bodies as our own cells. And the gut microbiome contains up to 150 times as many genes as the genetic pool inside human cells. So it stands to reason that it's going to have a powerful impact on how we feel. Our gut, this is where it all begins, you guys. When I say it all starts in the gut, it's our physical ability to lose and gain weight. It's whether or not you feel bloated. It's how you digest and assimilate your nutrients. That's going to affect your skin health. It's whether you have headaches or migraines or moodiness or anxiety or depression, what your level of mental clarity is, how you sleep, how you're able to focus and perform and function. All of that is being determined by what's happening in our guts. Our guts have 100 million neurons, you guys. It's the center of our immune system, and disturbances here cause immune reactions all throughout the body. And when those are prolonged, it has a profound impact on our brain health, on inflammation levels in our body, our joint health, all of those things that I told you that I was experiencing. I'm like a case study, you guys, and I healed. I have none of that. I've been released from having the blood work test. I haven't experienced an anxiety attack in years. I feel the healthiest, happiest, youngest, most vibrant that I can ever remember feeling really in my entire life. And so I want you guys to understand that the bacteria in us controls how we think, how we feel, how we behave, and our gut controls our mind, our physical well-being, and our physical appearance. So the bad news about that, let's start with the bad news, okay? Our guts are completely out of whack for a lot of reasons. The number of babies being born by C-section is significantly on the rise. When the baby actually goes through the birth canal, it's exposed for the first time from that sterile environment of the womb to a lot of bacteria in the vaginal canal, in the birth canal. And those bacteria give babies their first induction into creating that microbiome. So when that piece is missed out on, we start life at a disadvantage of building that healthy microbiome. So that's one thing. The second thing, antibiotic overuse. And I know not everybody has been exposed to a lot of antibiotics in their life, personally being prescribed them. They're also in our soil and in our water and in runoff because of the level of overuse, not just with humans, but also with animals and in farming. Our highly processed diets, inflammatory foods, processed foods, the things that are in our pantry that are in boxes and cans, most of them, things that are super high in sugar. A lot of what we're eating is not actually food. It's chemical compounds that are put together and we call them food. Our high stress lifestyles. You guys, for so many of us, we wear stress like a badge of honor these days, and it is not. Stress does not equal success, you guys. When we get that stress under control, when we get that stress managed, when we learn to live life freer and happier and more joyful, we will actually become more successful, and I'm living proof of that. High levels of toxin intakes and heavy metals. Some of that's uncontrollable through our environment. Some of it is controllable through what we put on our bodies and into our bodies. And then there's food sensitivities that create inflammation, and we're going to talk more about that later in the week. It's kind of a cyclical thing. Some of it is we have food sensitivities that we're unaware of. They're creating inflammation. It's causing damage in the gut. But then the more that happens, the more prone we are going to be to developing food sensitivities. Okay, so now let's talk about the good news, okay? We can actually feed our gut microbiome for optimal health physically and mentally. For example, there are actually certain types of fat that we can eat that will change the types of bacteria that decide to live in our intestines. This is why I'm giving you guys meal plans for each week. It's why I'm giving you guys food lists to choose from. I'm helping you if you shape your meals from the food list that I've given you, from the meal plans and recipes that you're going to get. You are actually going to be feeding your gut microbiome for optimal health and healing. So another thing that we can do is we can eat probiotic foods. They help heal and rebalance the microbiome by putting those good bacteria that live in our gut and help break down our food and support gut health and overall wellness back into balance. We need to get more diverse. We need more diversity of those bacteria, and we can actually support that through the foods we're eating, like coconut kefir, tempeh, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, pickled veggies, as long as they're not pasteurized. You need them to not be pasteurized. And non-dairy probiotic-rich yogurts. So those are probiotic foods that you can eat that are going to help support the healthy levels and balances and diversity of bacteria living in your gut. Also, to support those probiotics, we want to eat something called prebiotic foods. So prebiotic is just food for the good bacteria living in our gut. And it comes from the non-digestible fiber that is found in certain foods. So some prebiotic foods that we are going to want to add into our diets as much as possible are bananas, asparagus, garlic, jicama, onions and leeks, and things like dark leafy greens and dandelion greens, which dandelion greens are a springtime thing. So keep an eye out for those in the spring. We can also supplement with a really high quality probiotic, and that's why probiotics are on the foundational supplement list, because we're all here because you're in a state of needing to heal. So rotating, the brands or the strain combinations of probiotics that you're taking can help give you optimal results. But for this first 30 days, I want you to get the probiotic that I've recommended in your plan. And you're going to take that every single day while we work to balance and heal alongside our good nutrition. So everything we take in to our bodies, whether it's through our mouth or through our skin or through the air that we're breathing even, is being processed, okay? So all of the food that we eat, it has to process through our gut. And if our guts aren't healthy, we can't properly digest our food, we can't properly assimilate and absorb our nutrients. Also, that's going to affect like your overall health, because what you're taking in. So you could be eating everything right, all these super healthy foods, loading your body with good nutrients. But if you can't digest it and assimilate it, then it's essentially being wasted. You're not really getting to maximize your good diet. So you've got to heal your gut so that you can properly digest and assimilate your nutrients. You can actually be eating all the right things and be malnourished because your gut can't function properly to help you get the nutrients out of your food. But in addition to that, the gut and the digestive system, this is where we're processing out toxins, you guys. It's a huge part of it. So many of us are backed up, bloated, sluggish. The way our gut feels ends up being the way we feel. We don't want to feel backed up, bloated, and sluggish and just heavy and stagnant. Those are horrible ways to feel. If you're feeling that in your gut, I imagine you're feeling that in your life, okay? So we need to do some healing work, some cleansing work, which we're really going to focus on in week 2 of this program, to reduce our exposure to toxins and to help our livers get a little bit of a break, to help our digestive system get a little bit of a break, and to eat foods that are going to help loosen up that old stuck on debris of yeast and mold and just the junk that's been backed up in our systems forever. The reason you see lots of leafy greens on your meal plans is because those leafy greens act like little scrubbing bubbles. They go in and they like scrape all that and they scrub it and they help us loosen that junk up so that we can flush it out of our bodies. So we're going to be eating lots of things that have really healing, specific functional roles and are also super nutrient dense and easy to digest. So we're trying to really give that digestive system the optimal amount of support. So I'll leave you guys with this thought. The gut lining is only 1 cell wall thick. That is not very thick, right? It is like a sensitive area. And wear and tear from inflammation in our bodies, from the foods that we're eating, from the toxins that we're taking in, all of these things, foods we're sensitive to that we're unaware of that we keep eating, keeping us in this constant state of fight or flight mode, antibiotic use and overuse, stress, lack of sleep, adrenal fatigue. All of this creates inflammation in the gut and in the body. And that starts to create over time tiny tears developing in this gut lining that is 1 cell wall thick. This contributes to a problem commonly referred to now as leaky gut syndrome, and it's becoming more and more popular. I would guess that many of us, if you are watching this video right now, have some level of leaky gut. So I want you to make sure that you're taking the quizzes throughout the weeks that I am providing for you, assessing where you're at personally so that we can also figure out, in addition to this good nutrition and the supplementation that we're starting with, if there are any other healing modalities that we need to bring in to support your healing. So make sure that you go all in on all the aspects of the program that I'm sharing with you each day, because that is going to optimize your results, speed up your healing, and help you start to feel your best as quickly as possible. If you have questions about the information that I shared today, I hope you'll pop into our Facebook group, tag me, ask me your questions, share how things are going for you. Did you learn something interesting? Post it, share it with somebody else. You just might inspire someone else to get started on their own healing journey. And the only thing more exciting and more empowering than healing your own body and maximizing your own health is getting to contribute to someone else doing the same. So thanks again for being here. I'm really excited for you on this journey. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that this will fuel your fire to really focus in on this week's nutrition plan, stick to it, and find out just how good your body was designed to feel.